The ninjaSpeedi rapid cooker and air fryer. And tonight I'm going to try for my first recipe. I've done an unboxing video, but I haven't done a recipe yet. An 1.5-inch Porterhouse. And that's because I like the looks of it, the squareness of it. I want to put that big steak in there and see how it does at 450 degrees on broil. And I may adjust that during the cook. We're going to see how it does. I've also got some mushrooms that maybe we'll sear and saute at the end with the drippings from the steak. You know, we're going to do it on the fly and see just how well it does. Let's do it. Okay, so let me say why I'm doing an air frying recipe on this device first. That's because if you ask me, if I'm going to put something on my counter that's got to stay up there all the time and keep it there and do all the other things it says it'll do, it's got to air fry first, period. And I love the design of it for Ninja. I think the square is great. I think the square is there. But let me say, it is honestly got to air fry first. And then, if it does the other stuff, that's a big, big plus. But the first thing is air frying. That's an 1.5-inch Porterhouse. That is the ultimate test, if you ask me. But I've got other tests I may do, but if it passes this test, I'm good with it. There's what I got it for. And this day and age, $8.99 a pound is a bargain. That's one of the reasons I went with it. But again, this is how I cook all my steaks, or I'm going to say 80% of them now, right there in some type of air fryer. Let's get it started. Okay, so I did spray a little avocado oil. I always do that, and you can kind of tell where I've already done it. But I just kind of rubbed it on there a little bit, and then I'm just putting salt and pepper. That is all I ever put on my steaks. If you watch my channel, you know that. I rarely put any other seasoning. Of course, you put whatever you'd like. But what we're going to do is preheat this for a minute, let that set for a minute, and we're going to get it started. I did spray the crisper tray with some avocado oil and kind of rubbed it around by hand, just smoothed it out, spread it out, whatever. I've got it set on air broil 450, and this unit does not do a preheat. So what we're going to do is hit start. I'm going to let it preheat, and I'm going to let it go at least 5, maybe 10 minutes. I'm not in a hurry, and it kind of gives my steak a little time to absorb some of those salt and pepper and kind of relax a little bit. We're going to drop it on there and see what it does in just a minute. Now, I know you see these mushrooms over here, and they're kind of a test. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with them. I may add them at some point during the cook, or I may just use the drippings from that steak, add a little butter, slice these up, whatever what I see fit, and then saute them while this is resting, or at some point. Okay, we're coming up on about 9 minutes of preheat, and we are 433 degrees. I'm good with that. I'm about to drop it. If you can hear that, it is turning it on. And I'll say this, that's in the, of course, my crisper tray is in the upper position. We're set to 450. I'm going to add, we'll go ahead and add 10 minutes because I'm going to watch it with my thermopan, and I'm going to kind of go by a lot of things. One thing I'm a little bit concerned with is smoke. I've got my ventilation system on, and if I need to, I'll open the door. We'll know in a minute. Okay, so we are coming up on the 5-minute mark, and I'm anxious to see what it looks like. I'm going to open it, and it looks good. That's what it should look like. Now, I'm not going to do any temp checking. I'm just going to go ahead and flip it, even at the 5-minute mark, because that side looks good. Ooh, it's a little warm. So I'm going to flip it over, get the lid back down, and let it go. I do have the door open, as you can see. There's a little smoke going on, but you know, no crisis, not that big a deal. Okay, so you can see I'm getting a good bit of smoke, and it's kind of snapping and popping, and we're about to do a temp check. But before I do, I'm going to add some time in case I need it. But right now we're at 9 minutes and 30 seconds, so I'm going to add 5 minutes so I can keep up with it. It's roughly 15 minutes cooked. But look at that. That looks like a steakhouse steak. And let's see what the temp is right now. 108, right at the surface, 111. That would probably climb to 120, and if that's what you wanted, you need to pull it at 10 minutes. I'm going to let it go a little bit further and cook this other side. Now, I'm a little leery of the Porterhouse side or the filet side because it's thin, and the other side was the 1.5 inches. But hey, you can't, I don't do it myself. I have to rely on somebody else, but we'll know in a minute. Okay, so technically we're about another 2.5 minutes. Look at that steak. And you tell me if that doesn't look like a steakhouse steak. And that is why I do this. There's 121. It's going to where I want, which is about 130. And that's if I find the lowest point in it. I'm going to get it out of there. It's done. Now, these mushrooms that I'm kind of experimenting with, I don't know yet. That's the truth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this out. I probably ought to think this out a little bit better. And I'm going to get this out of here, and I'm going to drop these in there and saute them in the real beef broth. I mean, that's not beef broth like you buy. It's going to be the kind you make. So I'll be back. Okay, so I may have bit off a little more than I could chew trying to do this, but I want you to see it. You see the liquid in there, the beef broth. I mean, that's what it is. Now, I don't know how this is going to do because they're really hot, but I've got about a third of that stick of butter is going in. And I'm going to stand here and saute them a little bit just on the residual heat. And then if I need it, I got sear saute right there. So, I mean, it's a no-lose situation, but I do have to get my act together. Okay, so here's what my mushrooms look like. Oops, excuse me, I bumped the camera. There's what they look like right now. All right, now I think, honestly, you have to turn this device. Well, I'm pretty sure you do. You have to turn it all the way off, and then you come back, and then you go down to sear saute. It's set to high 5. I'm going to leave it there because I'm doing a video. If I wasn't, then maybe I would be a little more delicate with them. But you can see, and you could eat them just like they are right now after maybe 2 minutes, because we're looking for about 3 more minutes, and that would be 5 minutes of rest here. And then, honestly, I've got to do some pictures and stuff like that. But we're going to cut it up and see what it looks like. But I don't have to tell you. You saw what it looked like. It's steakhouse quality steak in an air fryer. And this one did it excellent. And it held a fairly large steak, or a very large steak. Okay, so we're roughly 4 minutes after I took this steak out. And look, I mean, these are already, they're ready. There's no doubt. And that's what the sear saute does. Now, there's a lot of things you could do. I don't even have to say it, but I'm fixing to pull those out. I'm going to get them on this plate, and then we're going to kind of cut that steak because it's not even 5 minutes rested yet. Let's see. Okay, that is a meal. I mean, look at the juices that run off the steak and the mushrooms. I still got some in here cooking, but there's nothing wrong with what you see right there. So we're going to cut this and see what it tastes like. Hang on. An air fried steak that most people, I'm not saying all, a lot of people would argue with you that you can't do. Well, you can, and I've been doing it for years. I've got several videos on it. So I'm going to get this laid out a little bit better and I'll be back. Allow me to say that it passed with flying colors, and almost all air fryers do. But this one, I wasn't worried about it, but it worked perfect. Everything's excellent. These mushrooms, honestly, I've already ate about 5 or 6 of them. Whoops, I like to snatch that out of there. But I've already ate several of the mushrooms. They're excellent. And you can tell by looking that they are, that they're perfect. This right here is perfect. You don't have to wonder if it's dry or not because you can see the juices from the steak. Now, the juices from the mushrooms are still in here. But the mushroom's great. The steak's great. Air frying a steak is impossible to beat. And then, when you add something like mushrooms, I could have done potatoes. I could have done a lot of things in the bottom of that. in the steak broth. You know, they're talking about beef broth. Well, that's real beef broth, the kind you make out of a porterhouse or filet mignon or a ribeye, whatever you use. Anyhow, take my word, the steak's excellent. The SPEEDI did an excellent job. So it may end up on my counter. We'll see. It'll have to argue with the one lid, but the one lid Ninja makes. But it's got a lot of pluses. I'll say that. Anyhow, y'all come back to see me. I love y'all, and y'all have a good night. All right, just one last look. There's what it looks like. See, there's the mushrooms in the bottom right there. Everything worked great. It worked great by putting them in there with the butter and then hitting the sear saute. I don't know how you ask for much more.